What up, what up? Welcome back. The Fantasy Football Smackdown live here on YouTube Wednesday night, 9 p.m.-ish, maybe 9:05 Eastern time. Welcome in. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Monte. We're going to start with the new man to the crew, Mike Casper, joining us for the first time. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to the people here?
Hey, yeah, Kyle, thanks for having me. This is fun to come on. I've been a Patreon of the DWZ for a little over a year, and Memphis has given us the grace of making some Patreon pods there, so produce a little extra content over there. So I'm just a Dynasty lover. Been playing for about 4 years now, but been doing redraft for about 7 or 8. So love Dynasty though, can't get enough. But redraft's still my thing. So
awesome, man. And like that, a little plug too for the Patreon. So go check that out. The chat is always crazy, insane. I wish I had more time for it, honestly. Every time I jump in there, I'm just like, blown away by the conversations they're all having. And I've been in a league or two with a lot of those guys. It's a great group, so definitely jump on in there. Jake Rip, co-host. It's been 2 days, bro. How you feeling? You recovered after that wide receiver 32 and 32?
Yeah, man. I thought that went pretty well. I got to be honest. I was nervous going into it, but all in all, not too many hiccups. I think we've climbed the ladder, going from quarterback to running back to receiver. I'm not going to be around next week, so good luck with tight ends. That's going to be quite the quite the show. But
real convenient for you to miss the tight end show.
Yeah. So I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I told you off the air that I was hoping you could give my analysis along that I do have Travis Kelce as my tight end 1 this year. So in case people were wondering, that's where I stand.
Hot take.
Great work. Tyler, welcome back, bro, at FF Tyler. How you been? How was your Expo experience? I know you made it out.
Yeah, Expo was great. It was quite wonderful to meet a bunch of the Twitter friends in real life, as I feel like now my wife can't make fun of me for having internet friends because now they are my real friends, which is great. But had a good time, recovered, happy to be here and talk some football.
Yeah, man, good to have you back. And, of course, last but not least, we can't forget him, at DWZ Memphis, the Godfather himself. This dude was rubbing elbows with everybody down there at the Expo. And, bro, it was good to hang out with you, man.
Dude, it was great to catch up. I was rubbing more than elbows.
Oh, I was going to say it. He beat me to it.
I tried to leave it there.
But no, it was great. So many good people. And because you are watching and listening to a Dynasty Warzone fantasy football production, we're telling everybody, Bob Lung has already released the dates for 2022. It's August 13th and 14th. And as Jerry and I said last night on the Dynasty Warzone, book your shit. Go ahead and book it. Get your hotel room at the Doubletree. That was the event hotel. But if you don't want to pay $20 for the breakfast buffet, highly recommend the Fairfield Inn and Suites. That's where Jerry and I stayed. The nice old lady who made our breakfast every morning at the buffet, 2 thumbs up, baked into the price. Can't beat it with a stick. 6 minutes away from the event.
There you go. I'm gonna give one more shout out to Bama, Patreon member. Got to hang out with him a bunch.
Big Sean.
We'll treat people, but that was a funny story. But anyway, yeah, man, Expo was awesome. It was cool to see a lot of other people that I've known through the industry. Quote unquote, dude. Just everybody was just awesome. I didn't meet a single person where I walked away. I was like, oh, dude, that guy is a douche. Like, it was just good times. It was really was.
Did you meet Kyle August?
I did. That guy is a douche, but whatever. We just let him hang around here on the show once in a while. So, oh man, good times for sure. Yeah, I'll leave that for off air. Never mind. I won't say that. Anyway, let's start off. We got a little free open question here to start the show. We're going to dive into all of your fantasy questions, whatever you got, redraft. If you got dynasty questions, bring them here, leave them in the chat. And they will get answered on this show. But let's kick it around the room here. Let's start the show off with a little bit of fun here. Topic I threw out this week for you guys was your top 3 favorite NFL players that did not play for your NFL team. So, like, my favorite team's the Cowboys. So I would not be able to know Cowboys players would be eligible for that. So hopefully that's not too complicated. But we'll just go just give us your 1 through 3, and we'll kick it around the room. We'll start with the new guy. We'll start with Mike. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no, thanks. It was a lot of fun. I started with the fantasy one, kind of my boo this year in Dynasty, and that's CeeDee Lamb. I don't like to be too hot takey, but I just think he's going to be wide receiver 1 to 3 by the end of the year overall in the wide receiver realm. So he's going to be fun to watch. I live in Texas now too, so I'm a Broncos fan, so I'm trying my best to go up there and see him play. It's the day after my birthday, so I just got to put the plug into my wife to go to Jerry World and get some tickets. But he's one fantasy I definitely love to watch.
Nice.
The other one's Mahomes, which I only say that because I'm a Broncos fan, but I just love watching him sling the rock. So despite how much we've hated the Chiefs over the years as a Broncos fan, you can't doubt his game, and it's so much fun to watch. And then my third one is just Aaron Donald on defense, just to see how much he's actually double teamed and how he can just destroy games single-handedly is super fun to watch. So that's my top 3 currently playing. Yeah,
excellent, man. All beast for sure. And I mean, who doesn't love Pat Mahomes, bro? The dude is definitely it's gonna be a joy to probably watch that guy for the next 10, 15 years. I don't know if I'd want to be in his division, but I'm glad that you put him on your list. I like that. Jake, how about you, man? No Falcons for you, so you can't even put Julio on there if you wanted to. I'm sorry, bro.
Oh man, yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, you know what? Now that you're saying that, I wish I didn't bring up Julio's name, but I was trying to think of like guys. You say who's my favorite player? Like I don't know, who's a guy I would get like a T-shirt of, or I'd be willing to put down $30 to get their shirt. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, like. I don't know. I think I'd consider him one of my guys as far as RB talents in the league. Like I'd put him right up there with Saquon, top 2, top 3 in a vacuum. I after that I went to the tight end position, and Cal, you saw most recently in a draft that we're doing TJ Hawkinson. I'm getting him everywhere. And a lot of times I feel like at a value, surprisingly enough, like as a guy who seems like he's going to get peppered with targets. And maybe I took this question a little bit as much of like from a fantasy perspective. And actually, you know what? And if you're asking me who my favorite players are, that kind of is my answer. Like the guys who are scoring me points on Sunday for my fantasy team. If I can't choose guys on the Falcons, then these guys are my favorite players. Love Jonathan Taylor, love TJ Hawkinson, and I love DK Metcalf. Is he still 22 years old?
Forever and always.
I'm not even sold on that. Like I hear that, I get like the bench warmers, bench warmers vibe where he goes up to the mound to check his birth certificate, and he gives them the $5 bill, and inside it has written in crayon says "I am 12" for his birth certificate. I feel the same way with DK Metcalf, man. The dude, that dude's a superstar. He's gonna be freaking ridiculous, and I don't think he's even come close to his ceiling. It's fun to watch him play. I think it's just only going to get better. But those are my 3 guys. I think if you have to ask me my favorite players that aren't Falcons, I like those 3.
Awesome, man. Tyler, how about you, bro?
Yeah, so the first name that I was going to say was going to be Matt Stafford because he's no longer a Lion, but it sounds like the stipulation is they have not played for my Detroit Lions, so he's off the list. The first one's going to be quite easy for me. It's going to be Dak Prescott. Followed his career since college, like since he got into the league. I've been standing Dak Prescott before he was actually elite, saying he's elite as like a halfway bit, but then it came true. So like I'm all aboard on Dak Prescott. Absolutely love the guy. I promise I'm not pandering right now, but like Tony Romo, again, probably one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, super underrated.
Michael Irvin,
just love his game as well. I mean, the thing is like I'm almost like a closeted Cowboys fan. Not that I like the team, I've just always been a huge fan of their quarterbacks. And then finally, probably Tyler Lockett has a great name. I think that's probably the first part of that, but also followed his career since Kansas State days. Just love the way he plays the game, especially with Russell Wilson. I think they got that kind of I don't know, it's like unspoken or that intuitive. Like they're just always on the same page. Just watching those 2 play football has always been a treat. So it's going to be Romo, Prescott, and Tyler Lockett.
And there you go. Tyler's top 3 players, also known as his entry ticket to this show anytime he wants. Positive talk about Tony Romo and Dak Prescott. That'll get you an invite every single day. Memphis, drop some knowledge, drop some wisdom here.
I thought my first guy was out of the league, but I remember he's actually still back in the league, is Rob Gronkowski. He's as awesome off the field as he is on it. And if there was a guy that like if you won like a trip to hang out with any NFL player in the world in Vegas for like a weekend, how are you not picking Rob Gronkowski? So just as much fun on the field as off. My second would be Terry McLaurin. I think everybody knows who listens to any of the shows that I've been on. I've been on Terry McLaurin since pre-draft of his rookie year. Big fan. And then I'm going to go with my all-time favorite player, Bo Jackson. Always Bo Jackson. I'm a Colts fan, so I didn't name any Colts. So there you go, sir. Rob Gronkowski. Now, he did throw one of the Colts. I forget the guy's name. He threw him out of the club that one night on that Sunday night game, like literally bounced him like through the end zone on his way to scoring a touchdown. But hey, these things happen.
Yeah, Gronk is a good one. He was somebody that was on my list. I almost, but he just missed the top 3 for me. I pretty much went all for whatever reason. I don't know. And again, this was completely open ended. You guys could do however you wanted. I ended up with all like retired guys, but my list was Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, number 3. I owned him all the time in fantasy football. I don't know why. He always seemed like he was just disrespected, even though he got a lot of pub. He was always attainable. Number 2 for me was Randy Moss. My first impression of him was him kicking me in the nads at like age 7 or whatever on Thanksgiving Day, whatever year that was. Unbelievable talent, obviously, but dude was just a monster. And number 1 for me, favorite player that's not a Cowboy of all time is Mike Vick. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as far as just buying whatever that Madden 2001 or whatever. And the dude was just a different breed. And definitely my favorite player to never play on the Cowboys for sure. Yeah, man, there you go. So great list there. Absolutely. Let's dive into a couple of things here. If you guys are watching live, do you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We have not talked tight ends yet on the Smackdown. It's coming next week. We're going to dive into every single team, cover every name that is relevant. But I know for myself, I have my biggest draft of the year for my redraft leagues is this upcoming Saturday. It's big time. It's the one that I care about the most. So let's Jake, I'll start with you. I'll just put you on the spot 'cause you're my co-host. So I think you can handle it. And if you get mad at me, you don't have a choice. We're
Shut
married
up,
now.
Kyle.
Exactly.
Shut up, Kyle.
What's your thoughts on the tight end position? Kind of just overall, is it, for example, is it just give me the top 3 or I'm out? Is there a second tier of guys? Kind of who's in there? What are you looking to do as your draft approaches? Kind of what's your thoughts going into it for the tight end position?
Yeah, my take on this has kind of changed a lot this offseason. Like it started off as I'm going Travis Kelce or I'm waiting until the very last round to take a tight end. And then it's like, I don't know, I kind of moved George Kittle and Darren Waller, not into that same tier, but like those guys have so much value as it is. The hype around Kyle Pitts, I mean, that ceiling, if Atlanta ends up using him as some sort of wide receiver, which I think a lot of people at this point are kind of anticipating, then the upside there is ridiculous. And then even down to TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews, like last year, I'm trying to think it would have been last year. Like the whole middle round tight end thing was like completely off the table for me. I wasn't even considering it. I was one of those bums who was out on Darren Waller. But looking at all these names, I mean, TJ Hawkinson, I've already mentioned 5 times this show, and we're 13 minutes in. He's gonna be off the charts, and I'm really torn between him and Mark Andrews right now. I'm curious actually to know where the rest of the room stands on this, but if Rashad Bateman's missing time, it seems like it's just Mark Andrews of Mark Andrews pass. He's just gonna get a buttload of targets, and so is TJ Hawkinson. So all right, so I guess I'll just open this up then. Is anyone here taking Andrews over Hawkinson? No, nobody. Everyone.
I have Andrews on my fade list. He was my sell when we did the AFC North. I do expect Bateman to be back. He might miss the first 2 to 4 games of the season. This is already a low volume passing offense. I know we've beaten that horse to death, but at the same time, they brought in Sammy Watkins, and we all make fun of Sammy Watkins because he's kind of a unique personality, and he's never lived up to the hype that he was touted as a rookie coming into rookie drafts. But he's a professional wide receiver. He's a lot better. Him and Bateman are going to show up. They're going to be a lot better than Devin Duvernay and Miles Boykin. I don't think I'm making a bold proclamation by saying that. So now Mark Andrews is going to be in a lower passing volume offense with professional wide receiver Sammy Watkins, with Rashad Bateman, who, like I said, he's going the long game, and then you're going to move Hollywood Brown to the wide receiver 3. That's a significantly better wide receiving group than Mark Andrews has ever played with. And that's going to give Lamar Jackson many more options in the passing game. So the fact that he's going to hyper-target, and it's kind of odd to say anyone in a low-volume offense can be hyper-targeted. I just think what volume Andrews has lived off of is going to go way down in 2021. Maybe the first game or 2, until Bateman gets back, maybe not. But eventually, when you need him the most, I don't think the volume's going to be there. So that makes me very, very nervous for him, especially given the new target competition.
Mike, Tyler, any initial thoughts on how you're approaching the tight end position, especially here at the top?
Yeah, I was gonna agree to a degree. The interesting thing is, like, all of the wide receivers there are injured right now. Like Sammy Watkins just got injured 2 days ago too. Bateman's injured and Marquise Brown's injured. So it might be a turn and flip at the beginning of the season kind of thing. If Andrews gets off to a hot start because he's the only one there. I'm a Broncos fan, and some of the insiders are saying the Ravens came calling about Tim Patrick because of the injuries that they've had in their wide receiver room, which I think is interesting. He's not a slouch. They signed him to, 1 year, $3 million, and Denver has a huge wide receiver room right now. So they might let him go. But if he goes there and everyone's healthy, then yeah, I don't know if I want any Andrews there. And as far as my just overall strategy, I'm kind of one of the top three, and then wait until the end to take a flyer on, a Troutman or, an Ingram or someone like that'll just produce a Logan Thomas. A Tyler Higbee's probably Everett. And what I would do personally is I just take two at the end and then see what happens week one, drop one, pick up another one, figure it out and see if you can find that Robert Tanya and lightning in a bottle kind of thing in the later rounds.
Hey, Kyle, do you have a current ADP on where Andrews is going? Like overall, I know with tight ends, he's probably 5 or 6.
Yeah, Andrews overall, yes, I do. I can just type into the internet.
See, if you type in Mark Andrews right on the internet, and I hope you filibuster, you will be able to. He said a 5th round. So look at some of the 5th round wide receivers. Who's going in that 5th round running back wide receiver range?
You got it up, Kyle? Because I got it.
Yeah, so this is half PPR right now. So yeah, Mark Andrews going 51st overall. So some of the receivers just ahead of him for reference. So you got Adam Thielen and Cooper Kupp, but then behind Mark Andrews you have Tyler Lockett. Hawkinson's actually behind him too, but DJ Moore is behind him. Deontay Johnson, Ayuk, Galladay. I mean, those are just the receivers. There's a bunch of running backs.
You named a ton of names that you said Kupp, you said Ayuk, you said DJ. I'll take all those guys, and I'll wait until the very last round or two, and I'll double tap Austin Hooper and Gerald Everett. I'm big on Austin Hooper this year. The Browns' schedule is way tougher this year. Last year, they whooped up on the AFC South with the Jags and the Texans. Now the Colts and the Titans notwithstanding, and they beat up on the NFC East, and they swept both those divisions. But this year, they have to play the NFC North, which means games against the Packers, Vikings, and Bears, and they've got to play the AFC West, which means the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. And the Broncos' offense looks pretty good. The old-fashioned ground and pound in Cleveland is probably not going to happen as much in 2021, and they're going to lean a little bit more on the passing game. So I like Baker for that reason as like a sleeper back-end QB, and I love Austin Hooper because if you tell me the number one target in the passing game is Jarvis Landry, there's no reason why Austin Hooper couldn't be number 2. Sorry, I don't buy Odell Beckham. I don't buy broke things.
Oh man, yeah. You mentioned Hooper. I was going to throw Tyler. I'll kick it back. I'll kick it to you. If you're looking for a couple other names to start your season off with that are going very late, I like Hooper. Starts off with the Chiefs, and then the Houston Texans. So that's hilarious. So you could go with him for 2 weeks and then take the approach that Mike was talking about as far as just kind of obviously picking these guys up and seeing how they do. Stream if you need. And then, I wish he had more targets in the games that he played last year. It was a small sample size, but I like Irv Smith. I think this is his time to shine. He's the man there now. And they start off at Cincinnati, at Arizona, and then Seattle week 3. I mean, those are all matchups that offense should excel in. So that's another guy.
Can I ask you an Irv Smith question?
I would love an Irv Smith question.
What's stopping him from being the second target volume receiver in that offense? If at the end of
Adam Thielen for sure.
Adam Thielen, he stinks.
Adam Thielen's like 31 years old and he's already hurt. If we look back at a year from now and say that Irv Smith was second on this team in targets behind Justin Jefferson, I'm not going to be stunned. I'm really not, because the wide receiver 3 is Mark. I forget his name. It's Smith Marquette.
Or maybe D.D.
And-
Westbrook. Or maybe D.D.
Yeah,
Westbrook.
Yeah, maybe D.D. Yes. Allow me to run out and take D.D. Westbrook over Irv Smith right after I play in traffic. Get out of here.
Irv Smith is going super. Sorry, yeah, he was going super late. Now he's 14th overall at the position, so he's not somebody you just get for free, but he's readily available. Hooper is free as hell. Like, you know that when you walk into a store and there's like that $5 DVD bin, like Austin Hooper's like the VHS tape that accidentally slid underneath and you got to dust it off. He's there, but he's usable for sure. You just got to have a spot for him. So that's there's a few guys if you're looking to stream. Those are a couple guys that I like because I'm usually in that camp too of starting off with just finding somebody and rolling with them. So Tyler, thoughts, man?
Yeah, I'll try to be short because I don't want to echo everybody too much, but I think Kelsey is in play late first, early second. I really like the beginning, like obviously like being in the 101 to 103 because usually Waller or Kittle there in the early third. If I don't get one of those three, it's just a heavy fade. I'm waiting to take so if I don't get one of those three, I'm waiting to take like the tight end 15 or something like that. And like usually when we're talking like tight end 15, it's like you can probably, you're looking at Higbee, sometimes Tanyan. I mean, Irv Smith, as you mentioned, could easily be there. Ingram, even Hooper, Jonnu. I like Hunter Henry a bit more than most people this year. So, I mean, it's just taking some shots. And I think Mike said it's taking 2 shots super late at like the tight end, like 15 and the tight end, like 17 or something like that. And just completely faded the position. Also, this is assuming there's not any type of tight end premium. So it's just the top 3 or bust for me.
Yeah.
Kyle, can I give you a better answer than I gave you the last time?
Absolutely, man. Take 2.
I like what Mike and Tyler both said about there being a top 3 because in the back of my mind, I was like, well, there's kind of like a top 5, top 6 to me. I think there's a top 3 in like any regular standard scoring league, those top 3 being Kelsey, Kittle, Waller. But if there's a tight end premium, then I'm willing to consider a top 5, top 6 because then, that upside with Pitts, Hawkinson, and even Mark Andrews. I think if there's a tight end premium, then I'm willing to take a stab on those guys in the middle rounds. But if it's just regular, they're going to get the same reception bonus as a receiver, then I think I'll agree with the top 3 tight end thing.
Yeah, I was with you, Jake, like for the longest time that like through this offseason, I was like, there's 3 and then there's another 3 and then I'm out. And like the player I don't want in any draft is whoever tight end 7 is. Like, I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I've kind of Pitts and Andrews, I've gotten so high up when you talk about those players that we mentioned, like and Hawkins is actually going 3rd amongst that, that second group of 3. There's just no way I'm taking those guys over some of those players that are there. Now, Hawkinson would be the most interesting to me. Like, he's my tight end 4. I really think he's in for a lot, but that price tag, I'm just like, nah, no thanks. I mean, he's going 2 rounds before Noah Fant, who's tight end 7. So like, that's a pretty big gap. So I'm probably just going to miss out unless I take a guy in the first 2 rounds, probably, because that's where these other tight ends are going, either end of round 2, early round 3. So we got a question from loyal listener. We got Andrew in the chat here, as always. He even apologized because he said sorry, he was in a meeting. I love how that is like he's got to apologize to us for living his life. But he said do any of you trust the skill position players for the Jags week 1? I'm gonna give Andrew the benefit of the doubt here too. Obviously, he's in a meeting, he's working, he's grinding. I'll throw some context on here. Jacksonville week 1 at Houston. So maybe that might make your answer a little bit easier, might pull you another direction. But this is an offense that, is in theory, as long as Nick Saban doesn't pull the rug out from all of us, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence week 1. A lot of new faces there, rookies, Marvin Jones coming in. We talked about the Jags receivers a little bit last week, but week 1, right off the bat, how are you guys feeling about this Jags offense? Is there a guy that excites you? Is there anybody you're fading, or are you just out altogether?
Weirdly enough, with the way that Andrew posed that question, however do any of you trust the skill position players for the Jags week 1? Bear with me. I've had a couple of beers before we got into this episode. Weirdly enough, I'm not sure there's anyone I trust more than James Robinson. It sounds like this dude's going to get the carries in week 1. Did you say Houston Texans week 1, Kyle?
At Houston, on the road at Houston.
Even better, no humidity in that South Florida.
There you go.
Yeah, it's hotter and stickier than I'm not going to go there than in Jacksonville in the first part of September. Being in that dome is great.
We're talking season long. Give me Travis Etienne. I'm not particularly close on that one, but I think week 1, James Robinson could go bananas in this offense against Houston.
I was fist pumping. I could not agree more. If the Jacksonville, and they're not going to be favored many, but if Jacksonville is favored or going to be ahead or close in the game, that's a James Robinson game. If they're going to be behind and trailing, which they're going to do a lot because they suck, then yes, you're going to want Travis Etienne. So their game, to me, the Jags are game script dependent. If they're going to be behind and chucking the rock, give me Visca, give me some Marvin Jones, give me Trevor Lawrence, give me Etienne. And if they're going to win, like they probably will this game, give me James Robinson.
I'm still starting Marvin Jones. I don't want to go on a Marvin Jones rant, but he's their wide receiver. He's their wide receiver one. He's their wide receiver one, man. Chark ain't nothing. Like, he is better than Chark. At 31 years old, he's better than Chark. Like, Chark isn't even like somebody I consider. I think Laviska is probably a start as well. I'm starting Marvin Jones, Laviska, but I think most people would agree to start Laviska. But Marvin Jones for me is going to be a start until I think he's one of the best wide receivers. I mean, yeah, maybe in that game they might be not throwing a ton, but I'm still there. I have Marvin Jones in my top 36 going into this year, and I'm all over it. Now we'll start him until he gives me a good reason to stop.
I'll throw some context there. Just to look at updated ADP. You got Chark going right now at wide receiver 33, 86th overall. Laviska outside the top 110. He's going at 116th overall, wide receiver 42. Marvin Jones sitting there as a around 11 or 12 here. Wide receiver 55. I mean, we talked about this a little last week, but like, I'll just take whoever's the cheapest of that group. I don't want Chark really at that price tag. So I'll take whoever's cheapest, and if that's Marvin Jones, I'm good. But yeah, I love the James Robinson call. It's been a weird offseason for sure. I think people have kind of gone back and forth. I think this dude's gonna have a role, and I think where he's being talked about right now, he's a solid value. Come draft day, he's going wide receiver 25. I think there's a few names that people will get excited about and take over him. Yeah, and if you can get him, he's going right around that same range as Mark Andrews and Hawkinson. So there's a running back there that's just outside the top 24. You could take a shot on, could get off to a hot start. So definitely an interesting question for a team that wasn't very fantasy relevant last year. Mike, any closing thoughts there on the Jags that people should know about?
I was just going to say, follow the coach speak from last week, from week one in the preseason. Urban Meyer said he wanted them to go faster. He said, everything's so slow. I want them to go faster. So I'm curious, just follow the next two games. Are they doing more plays? Are they doing this up-tempo kind of offense? Because more plays, more runs, more passes, more points, right? So I'm curious to see if they actually do that, or if that's just Urban Meyer coach speak because he's a new coach and that's what he wants to say and people want to hear. So something to keep an eye on the next couple of weeks, I think, in the preseason.
Yeah, and now they don't have to force the ball to Tim Tebow. So there's that. It's going to be good times for the Jags now. Another thing I wanted to bring up, because I saw this man talking about it on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure I saw people, or I heard people calling him out while I was hanging out with Memphis at the Expo. And I wanted his thoughts because I drafted this guy in round 3 and a slow draft was in. Memphis, can you just drop some wisdom on me? Why are you in on Joe Mixon for this season? What should the people know? Give me the elevator pitch on old Joe Mixon.
Well, for me, the reason why I'm in is a beat reporter close to the team said that this is not going to be the Zach Taylor offense we've seen the last 2 years where they've led the league in dropbacks or been in the top 3 for sure. And I think last year Joe Burrow averaged 40 dropbacks a game. Here's the thing. I could see that getting cut by a quarter, and Joe Mixon is just going to be leaned on. I think the team's going to be better in general. So for me, I don't mind Joe Mixon this year. Going to be much more involved in the passing game. Giovanni Bernard is gone. His only trick is he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy in 2021. But if Joe Mixon stays healthy, as much as it pains me to say, he's got RB5 upside written all over him this year. And I don't like saying it, but so for me, for Joe Mixon, give me all the Joe Mixon in 2021, and I'm going to sell him off at the end of the season to someone who thinks water's found its level.
Jake, I know you've been talking about Joe Mixon to me for 4 or 5 months, it feels like. And every time we go over rankings or talk about the position, I would always just naturally bury this guy. And I wouldn't use the excuse well, he burned me last year, but it just seemed like we've seen this dude for years and he's never done it. But you were in on this guy from the spring. Has your position changed? Or are you still totally on board?
The only thing that could give you slight pause about Joe Mixon might be that infamous Cincinnati offensive line. But besides that, you're looking at the games from last year: 19 attempts, 16 attempts, 17, 25 attempts, 24 attempts, 18 attempts. He's one of those handful of running backs in the league, one of 6 or 7. That might even be too many running backs. That's getting just this enormous bulk of the backfield work. And the receiving game too. Mixon's going to be active there. So I couldn't agree more with what Memphis said. I think he's a value where he's being taken now. He was being overdrafted last year, somewhere around the end of the first round, I think, if memory serves me correctly. But if you were in on him there, then I don't understand why. It seems like this year all the conversation around Joe Mixon just seems to be negative. Just everyone's out on Mixon this year for one reason or another. And I couldn't disagree with that more. So I am also in on Joe Mixon.
Yeah, he's going running back 13 right now, but 21st overall over at Fantasy Pros, half PPR, ADP. So towards the back of round 2 now. I'll open it up. Mike, Tyler, feel free to jump in here. I will throw in this little thing. You might want if you are not the Joe Mixon owner, your opportunity to acquire him could come in after the first 3 weeks of the season. As again, if we're talking redraft, we're talking these short sprints here. But Minnesota at Chicago at Pittsburgh. Those are some teams that have some pretty decent defensive lines. So he might not get off to the best start. So I just make sure, play the long game if you got Joe Mixon. I know, like I said, I just picked him up in the league. But Tyler, any thoughts on Mixon?
Yeah, I pay attention to the usage in the game, regardless of his fantasy stats. It's going to be huge for me. Just seeing, I'm not really worried about him getting the carries. Obviously, I don't think that's ever been an issue when he's out there. But is he necessarily getting 5 or 6 targets a game? And that's when I'm holy crap, this might be a real thing. I think top 5 upside is absolutely there for Joe Mixon. I've reluctantly come around on Joe Mixon. A lot of it has to do with his ADP of being running back 13. He's currently my RB 11, so I'm a little bit higher than ADP, especially in that top 30 range. 2 slots is a bit more substantial than it sounds. So I think there's a piece of me where I'm absolutely, middle of the second round. I didn't go running back in the first. Think that you're playing for a year, and if he gets hurt, absolutely that sucks. But at the same time, I'll be swinging for top 5 upside at running back, and that's one of the last places to do it. So I'm in at ADP, and I will most definitely be drafting some Joe Mixon this season.
All right, Mike, any final thoughts on here? And we got another running back question in the chat, so we'll jump to that. But any Mixon thoughts here?
Yeah, I've been a Mixon fan too, so it's just time for him to put up or shut up and show that he can be a workhorse back and do it. He signed a 4-year contract, so let's see it. This is the time. If he doesn't do it, then everyone will fade him. So let's see it.
Yeah, and he's the name, I think, when looking at this list, the guys are going around him. You got Gibson, Najee, Mixon, and then CEH, Dobbins, and then Dave Montgomery and Josh Jacobs. Swift is actually going behind him too. I think there's some names there that people could jump ahead of Mixon in your drafts. I think you're going to have every league has the guy who owned Joe Mixon at some point over the last few years that was probably disappointed. But I think, the workload would be great to what we saw at the beginning of last year. What Memphis pointed to was awesome. And then obviously the passing downs work would be phenomenal if that gets added to the bunch. He can already finish, I think, borderline RB1 without it, but I think he'd be
the one last thing I'll add, Kyle, is that Joe Mixon Joe Burrow, the other Joe, 2 Joes. That Joe Burrow is going to be a lot less because he's not a mobile quarterback. He's never going to be confused for Lamar or a Kyler, but he is was a fairly mobile guy, and I think he will be again at some point as his confidence returns. But you can almost consider him. I think he'll be like Matt Ryan, Jared Goff-esque. I think it's read 1, read 2, check down to Joe Mixon. And I think Joe Mixon's PPR work is being vastly underrated.
There you go. All right. We're moving on to another backfield here. This one came from Lions Pride 20 in the chat, but he's not talking about the Lions, which is weird because usually when I beat Lions fans, that's all they want to talk about.
I'm here. Let's go.
All right. He said, how do we see the Bucks backfield checking out in 2021? So I'm going to give, there we go. Put it back up. Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one so that way you can bat lead off here. But for reference, these guys are going in round 7, round 8. You got Ronald Jones, RB 30 right now in ADP, 72 overall. Leonard Fournette, just a handful of spots behind him as far as overall and at the position, running back 34. And then, Gio Bernard, he's living underneath that bargain bin with Austin Hooper. The dude is free right now. He's RB60 going behind some just ridiculous names right now over at Fantasy Pros anyway. So what's your thoughts on this Bucks backfield and who jumps out to you? Who are you targeting, if any?
I'll start off by saying I've always been a Ronald Jones hater, so I apologize for him and his stone hands. I'm sure he's a great guy, but I've never had him in almost any league. So, you don't want to take the first one of a group that you really don't like. Lombardi Lenny is playing for a contract. I'm not going to lie. I've gotten him in a lot of best ball to, see what happens, but I am genuinely concerned about a lot of the hype and rumors about Gio Bernard being Tom Brady's James White out there in Tampa Bay. So if I have to go with one, I think I'll take Lenny late if I have to. If maybe I'm going that 0 wide receiver thing and see if Lombardi Lenny's back. But that's some big risk that I usually don't take. I'm a running back early kind of guy in general. But if I had to pick one, I'll go with Lenny and see what happens.
All right. I like it. It's definitely it's not an easy situation. That's why the tough questions are brought here to this chat. Jake, Memphis, Tyler, any strong feelings on this Bucks backfield? What's your thoughts? Tyler, go for it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's strong feelings, but I'm definitely on the other side of that. Not a Ronald Jones guy. I mean, I don't know if necessarily I'm a hater, but there's always a group of people that love him way more than me, so he just doesn't find his way on my teams. But, I think his ADP is around like RB30 and RB31, and I've been pretty comfortable drafting him in that range, particularly as like my RB3. Let's say, obviously I don't want Ronald Jones there as my RB2, but if I have as my third, I feel pretty comfortable about that. And I think the big thing that comes down to it, I think he was RB like 26, 2019, like RB like 16 or 18 in 2020. So like that alone, I'm like feeling okay about it. But then I think, it was mentioned where the thing for me is I'm not going to try and figure out where these passing targets are going, right? Giovanni Bernard, Leonard Fournette. I've decided that I think I personally can identify like where more rushing attempts are going to be going. And I think like that's going to be Ronald Jones. That's always been his bread and butter. He's not going to be a pass catching back. So I'm drafting him knowing that, him getting much pass work is pretty much out the door, but I think he's the best rusher on the team. I think just pure rusher. And I think the big thing for me is just looking at the Bucks team, like the environment there, like they're good. They got everybody back. Like this is a team that's going to be winning football games. Like I think Vegas would agree. And, another little piece of that is like if they're winning football games, I see a decent amount of carries for Ronald Jones. So it is ADP, RB30. I'm absolutely willing to take that risk because without him being injured, I think that's his floor.
Well, I was doing a little ADP checking of my own, and per the good folks over at Fantasy Pros, RJ the 2, Ronald Jones the 2nd is going as RB31, Leonard Fournette going as RB32. So guys going just after them are Michael Carter of the Jets. I'll take him. Damian Harris, I'll take him. David Johnson, Zach Moss, I'll take him. Trey Sermon, oh hell yes. Gus Edwards, Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard. These are all guys that I would have more interest in than either of those two guys at that ADP. But if you scroll down, keep scrolling, scroll a little bit more, and at RB62, you will find Giovanni Bernard. I'm going to take the guy who's a wide receiver 6 in a PPR world. Give me that guy. Give me the cheapest guy. Because that means if you tell me I can get Damian Harris or Zach Moss at the same price, I can get one of those other two Jamokes. That's a Kyle August word. I can get one of those two Jamokes. I can get like a Zach Moss or a Damian Harris. And then at the back end of my draft, just tack on Giovanni Bernard for a little bit of depth. That's the way I'm going to play the Bucks backfield. And by the way, if you can't find him, Keyshawn Vaughn may be dead.
Oh boy, Keyshawn Vaughn. If you ever, you can do this now if you want. I've already done it in a few leagues. If you have any dynasty leagues, go look at your draft results just from a few months ago and see how much they probably would have been different now in August. But it's really fun to do it a year later and just laugh at what the hell we were thinking. And this is just, it happens every year. So there's a bottled entertainment for you. Go check that out.
Why can't they trade him to the Rams? They lost Cam Akers. Yeah. Well, why not?
I don't know.
Can we get like a pack of shoestrings, maybe a couple of new Rydell shoulder pads, few used jock straps.
Yeah, Sean
Yeah, it
McVay.
feels like
Freeman's going there. Send Royce
Huh?
there. Send
Who?
Royce
I was
Freeman.
just,
Let him
I
have
was
his.
just, it's like he was reading my mind. I was just about to say Royce Freeman. Give him another chance. That's amazing.
And insiders are talking about that too. That's why they're showcasing.
Insiders are
week
talking
one,
about
so.
Melvin Gordon was looking so good, so they could try to trade him back to the LA area, trade him to the Rams this time, and all of a sudden he had to go mess up a foolproof plan and pull his groin.
He's
I
got
can't
it.
believe-
He's got it.
I can't believe you said Royce Freeman. That was going around in my head. I'm like, I'm not going to start a Royce Freeman discussion. And right there.
The difference is Royce Freeman has been a bum for several years. Keyshawn
before
Vaughn's
he was
only
a
been a bum
bum,
for 1 year.
Yeah.
We are not sure he's a big of a bum yet. It's basically.
I tell you what, you can take Royce Freeman and Keyshawn Vaughn, and you can drop them both right into the bus station scene in Total Recall.
I'm gonna admit I don't know that reference because
Yep, that one's over my head too,
I'm
man.
uncultured, I
Google
guess.
it.
Me
Go
too,
to Google.
sorry. 3 or 4
Google the
hours.
internet.
I'll have to make that
Memphis,
happen.
very topical reference.
We got homework here. I'll bring up this stat on this Bucks D or backfield. Sorry. These were the stats I threw out. These are just breaking it down. The regular season and pretty much the same number of games. Ronald Jones had almost 100 more carries than Leonard Fournette. The targets were pretty equal. Fournette at 47 to Ronald Jones 42. Fournette did a better job of hauling the passes in, as we mentioned earlier. The stone hands of Ronald Jones showed up pretty well in the regular season. But, Jones was 12 fantasy points per game in half PPR. Fournette was 8.5. In the playoffs, though, Ronald Jones completely disappeared. The dude never did anything. He averaged less than 5 points per game. And as we know, Fournette went freaking off, almost 20 points per game. What are we going to see? And that was obviously without the factor of Gio Bernard. So this is really tough. Because going into the draft season, I thought Fournette was going to be my guy. But when you look at Memphis did a great job breaking down the running backs. My God, look at the receivers around these guys, right? Just 2 spots ahead, Jamar Chase and Chase Claypool. Sandwiched right between those Tampa Bay running backs is T. Higgins. You know where I live with that. There's no way in hell I'm taking one of those guys ahead of T. Higgins. And then behind them, you still got, Juju Smith-Schuster, Robbie Anderson. Those are guys I like. Colton Sutton, Deebo Samuel. Those are just the running backs that are there. Jerry Jeudy, not too far behind either. I just don't see myself taking those Bucks running backs. I'll probably, if I end up with any, it'll be Gio, I guess, in PPR. But
yeah, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue the receiving upside of any of those running backs too, given that we have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown in that offense. Like, how much more passing down work is there possibly for any of these running backs for that to be a significant, to move the needle one way or another?
Yeah, I wish that one of them was good enough, because I think this team is damn good. I would love to see one guy getting the work, or even 2 would be fine. But now it's looking like it could be, could be 3, not gonna have the traditional.
Just take Ronald Jones and take the majority of the carries. You're all right.
There you go.
You push me in this direction. I'm here now.
Tyler's got it. He's following the carries. No problem with that. I dig it. One thing I wanted to throw to you guys. This is not from the chat. This is from my head. But I'm heading in. I got a bunch of drafts coming up, as I'm sure a lot of listeners do. You got whether it be over home leagues or work leagues, whatever, friends. Do you guys have any either? I'll throw it a 2-parter. Do you have any draft day traditions, just like for yourself, like not necessarily related to the drafts? Is there anything that you kind of do to get yourself psyched up? And then the second part of that, is there anything that is fantasy related? Is there something that, when you're going into your draft, you make sure that you always have this available, whether it be, your ranking sheet, something, readily available to you, whether it's a strategy you keep an eye on. So I'll just, as an example for that, one thing that I'm always doing is, even if there's a draft board, I'm always keeping track for every team who's drafted a quarterback and who's drafted a tight end. That way I can tell on the turns if there's a position that I can maybe leave and get somebody good coming back. If I'm looking at it and I got 5 teams behind me and none of them have a QB, and there's only one left, I'm probably just taking that jump, grabbing that guy, and making sure that I'm not, left there hanging on the way back. Obviously the opposite of that. If they've all taken their quarterback, guess what? I can wait another round. So that's just one thing I do on draft day, as far as just a little tip, regardless of the year, regardless of what you think on players or any of those things. So we'll put Jake back on the spot. He's ready. He's ready to go. Jake, what you got?
I'll pile on to what you were saying because I do the same thing, keeping track of other teams. Doing so, I don't even know if I've been to a live draft where I don't bring a notebook or some sort of, I guess just regular notebook. and I always go in with a handwritten ranking sheet. I don't know why. I can't give you a good reason why I don't either type something out or print out some sort of ranking sheet, but that's been a tradition of mine for I don't even know if I don't like do it. I don't know. I do it instinctively. Like it's just but that weekend before I show up to the draft, that Friday before, I'm going to go through and I'm going to write down, 40 different quarterbacks, 60 wide receivers names. I don't know, man. That's just always been the move. That's the first thing that came to mind. And I definitely do the same thing. The next sheet over will be the entire draft board, just, so that I can see and predict what other people are doing. But I don't know. I caught a little flack for that last year. People were like, Jake, did you write down every single player's name? Like, yeah, you guys don't do that too.
Hey, I dig it. That's like, hey, it's tradition. You got to stick with it. So I like it, man. I wouldn't be giving you too much crap. Maybe we'll see. Anything else? Anybody else got something that jumps off you might want to just throw out there? Mike, go ahead, man.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say I'm a big tiers guy, but man, that's good on you, Jake, for writing it down. I gotta at least use. I don't know how to use Excel that well, but I gotta use that to make my own tiers, and then I'll just highlight them as I pick them, and then cross them off as they go. And then also, what I like to do is keep track of who everyone's favorite team is when I'm doing home leagues and things like that. So see who I think they might be picking that might be coming up soon, or if I have to reach a little bit on like a CD Lamb because Cowboys fan is right behind me, I'll be willing to do that this year. So keeping that in mind, and also later trades down the road. That's how you get them and win the ships.
I like it. I like it.
Tyler, you got anything?
I mean, like for me personally, like I every day at my real life job, I fight for my life in spreadsheets. Like that's just what I do for a living. So like I'm pretty big on the Excel spreadsheet thing. Like usually got like my ranks, and then I do like an aggregate ranks of like some people I really respect, and then like essentially I'll create tiers, and then there'll be like a value-based drafting board, and then there'll be the real draft board, and there's teams, and like when someone's picked, you pick that player, and it'll basically fill out the rest of the sheet. So I can just kind of like look through all of those things to try to understand like where's the value, what do teams have, what do my ranks say. Like I try to break it up into like big tiers, but like I frankly like I think tiers are important. But for me, they're always like way bigger than most people's I've seen. So I think that's what I do personally. I'm just big on the Excel spreadsheets. Then like as far as advice goes, I just wanted to basically echo the fact that like just paying attention to other people in your league, especially if it's not a bunch of analysts. People, in my opinion, have a tendency to like fill their blank starters before they look for depth. So just knowing what each team has, like, oh, this team's short on tight end. Like a lot of the times I'll see people I play with, they're always like very concerned about, oh, I don't have a starting tight end, like, so they won't even pay attention to like wide receiver value, or that's how they get stuck with Hawkinson or Andrews in like the 5th round. No offense, but like, so like that's basically where I'm at. Is just like, just really paying attention to, what the other teams have. Like we're looking at the board, but also looking at their starting roster, because I think there's an edge to be had when you can try to anticipate it. What value is going to drop. So basically what Kyle said, but a little bit more there.
I would say in Memphis, I definitely want you to chime in here, but I would just, the funny thing about that is honestly, like if you've been drafting in Patreon leagues, if you've been doing best balls with all these sharks for months, you just calibrate that a little bit, because it's not going to be like, oh, shit, I keep getting sniped in the middle of my draft. You're just going to be sitting there watching value just pour all over the place. Right. But you're dealing with a different animal. Like for me, and it seems like every freaking, like if I'm doing a league with just casual people, all of a sudden people are taking 2 quarterbacks in 1 QB leagues, so then I'm
like
sitting there
it's a super flex.
Oh yeah. I'm like, oh shit. Now I'm staring down Jameis as my leg or something, and it can get bad quick. So don't get too full of yourself that like everything, like it's just important to adapt to those weird things where you're not just completely screwed. But be smart about it. But there's definitely those things; those are real. So I just that came right to mind. So I want to throw out there. But Memphis, all you, bro.
Mine's similar to Jake. Now I also am a handwritten paper and pen guy. But what I do is on the back of that sheet, whether I print off rankings or I think I do a combination. Is I get my rankings on a spreadsheet and I print that out. And then when I'm about 3 or 4 picks away, I just rank the next 4 or 5 players on the board. So if I'm 4 picks out, I'm going to write down my next top 5 players, because then no matter who gets taken in front of me, I don't get sniped. I don't want to be 4 picks out and be like, yep, Cooper Kupp's going to fall to me. And then he doesn't, and then all of a sudden you got like a minute and a half and you're scrambling and you're losing your shit. Whereas if you're 4 out and you rank the next 5 guys, trust your rankings. There you go. These are my next 5. I want one of these 5. Your turn's up. You feel confident. You're making that pick with confidence. And then like a tradition, my wife, whenever I go to a draft or we host one, she'll take that thing where you fry up a pound of sausage, spicy sausage, a pound of hamburger, a block of Velveeta cheese, a jar of salsa, and she'll mix it all up in a crock pot and serve it with those really good Tostitos scoops. So you can and just go hard in the paint, man. Just go hard on that and drafting. But make sure you're having fun. You know, if you're a person listening to a podcast, you're probably the sharpest person in your league. Play it cool, you know, because you've already got a leg up because you're listening to pods and writing down rankings, especially if you're a nerd like Jake and doing all that shit by hand. But you're already in the top 1% of your league. So go in there confident and don't be the guy or the lady who goes, you sniped me. No one gives a shit, pal. No one cares that was your deepest, darkest sleeper of the year. No one cares. As a matter of fact, you're embarrassing yourself in front of a room full of people that don't care as much as you do. What's the old saying? Act like you've been there before. Have some fun. And remember, this is your workmates. This is your friends from the gym. This is whoever. Save the hyper-competitiveness for when you're with the hyper-competitive gamers.
I dig it. Our co-host of the War Zone here, Jerry Sinclair, chimed in and he said, Randy got his wife trying to give everybody diarrhea. So he
Sorry that your digestive tract is that of a dainty little flower. I saw how you ate this weekend. He ain't giving you diarrhea.
The digestive tract of a dainty flower.
My gosh. We also got.
Did you see Jerry? You see some of the pictures I posted of Jerry?
Way
more handsome and taller.
Somebody said I think it was Andrew on Twitter. You know,
I'm not surprised, Jerry. If you're listening, I'm not surprised. I knew you were that handsome and that tall.
He asked, "Is Jerry as stunning in real life?" He commented that because Memphis been thrown out on this.
It was very off-putting. It was very off-putting. You know, I was like, at least I'll be better looking than Jerry. Nope, not in real life. I can Instagram angle him. I can video camera angle him on the podcast. But in real life, Jerry's got that Baker Mayfield stubble. I can't beat this guy.
Boy, if that bummed you out, Memphis, you're going to be really bummed out when we meet next year.
Oh, there it is. Jake's
What are you talking about? Last time I saw you, you had a Justin Bieber haircut.
I'm coming in next year with a Justin Fields jersey.
Oh boy, here we go. We're gonna bring. We got some.
It's way too late now. I'm not taking the bait.
G in the chat, he gave some good advice too. He just told everyone to be calm in your draft. So we'll just leave it at that. If you're on YouTube, you get the bonus of seeing what the hell G's throwing out there. Last bonus thing, I don't know why I didn't mention this. This is like my go-to thing a lot of the times. Too, again, as you're doing these drafts, like they aren't your normal dynasty drafts and things. A lot of you guys are diehards. Clearly, if you're listening to podcasts on this stuff, listening to us, take wherever you're drafting from, whether it's Sleeper or Yahoo or ESPN, jump in a mock draft. If any, not just to draft a team, like that doesn't really matter. It's half the time it's who cares, but get a feel for the room, but also get a feel for their rankings on that site. You'd be surprised as to where these guys could be buried on that site's generic rankings. And a lot of times when you're drafting with, the average Joe, they're looking at what's in front of them. And if they have to scroll at all, that guy is a complete freaking ghost until those guys ahead of him start going. So I highly take advantage of that a lot of times. Like don't get lost. Don't get stuck yourself. Like, being lazy, note where those guys are in those rankings and where you could maybe, sneak one through, or like, hey, I don't love this guy in round 7, but he's not even ranked anywhere close to that right now. I could probably get him, in round 8 and feel pretty decent. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing better than showing up to a live draft and they hand out like the ESPN ranking sheet to everybody. It's like, oh yeah, and then I pull out my handwritten one and slide that over the top, and no one has any idea.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Jake's like, oh, I needed a place to put my gum. Thank you.
Oh, did you print off that ADP this year? I really need it.
Yeah. I've been in those leagues, and surprisingly, some of those leagues, the buy-ins were, I was like, there was enough money here. I might have at least done a little of my own research instead of us all drafting.
By the way, if you are the ultra nerd in your group and you do all the homework and all the leg group, don't tell them. Because when you lose to them, they just tell you, "Look at you, nerd! You did all your homework. You got beat by a bunch of home leaguers." You know.
You do a podcast?
Yeah, you do a podcast and you finish 7th. You must suck.
I think we've all been there. That's been
yeah. It's like yeah. You know, I'm sorry. It was the season that I lost Allen Robinson in week 1 and David Johnson in week 3. Man, I'm terrible.
Good times.
This is part of the game, right?
Yeah.
But my biggest thing for everybody to take away is this: don't put so much stress on your draft. You're not going to win your league at the draft, but you can lose it. You don't have to make the hero play. You don't have to make the crazy upside play. You want to be solid. You want to be steady. You want to hit a double, to use a baseball term. You don't have to hit a home run. You don't have to hit a grand slam. You want to come away with solid starters, and the real diligence and dedication to your league is making sure that you're listening to the Fantasy Football Smackdown, the weekly waiver wire show, which I think should be out on like Monday night via YouTube and Tuesday podcast. I know you're going to have Dr. Kyle Bowser, our board certified doctor of physical therapy, popping by to do that. You guys are going to be making recommendations. That's where you're going to win your draft. You're going to win your draft by picking up that guy, how much of your fab budget to use. And of course, I'm going to promote our own show, but that's the real tip, is remember, you're not going to win it there, so just be cool.
Yeah, definitely, and take it. Yeah, you're definitely gonna be able to take advantage of your league mates on the wire to be way more plugged in. People get lazy after draft day, and obviously we're all into this, so we won't. One thing that Memphis pointed out is like you can't win your league at the draft. I would say I didn't even realize this, so I'll just maybe other people did. Bye weeks don't even start till week 6. I mean, this year it's crazy, and I've always been somebody that's like, hey, don't worry about, if for your bench, like those are the guys that you hope to play later, right? Don't just take someone super safe just because like, oh, I may need to plug him in, but by week 6, all this shit's going to change. There's going to be a lot of guys that we thought were going to be half decent that won't. And, not that I hate this guy, but somebody like a T.Y. Hilton, right? His value on draft day is going to be okay. Are you going to play him any of the first 6 weeks? Probably not. And after by week 6, like hopefully you have somebody much hotter on your roster that you feel like, dang, I got my guy here, as opposed to like kind of the, what we all know T.Y. Hilton will be. No disrespect to the man. He's been a fantasy, great, but that kind of guy just doesn't really do it for me,
Hey, Kyle, I know you're trying to wrap up and get this thing out of here, but for next week's show, can we all just bring like our best tips and tricks to do in a league? Over the court. Like one of my favorites is calendar reminders. We all carry a smartphone in our pocket, unless you're Andrew Luck. And like someone's he's got a flip phone. It's not my fault he likes a flip phone. But if you have the calendar reminder, like your Google Calendar, your Apple Calendar, and you're starting to hear buzz that Michael Thomas is going to come back, because someone's going to draft Michael Thomas because he's Michael Thomas, and then they're realize they're not going to get him back till week 7. They're going to get a running back or someone else injured. They're going to drop Michael Thomas to go pick up that waiver wire handcuff, and then you're just going to let him sit there. And then about week 4 or 5, you're going to start hearing Shefty and Chris Mortensen and Ian Rappaport say, looks like Michael Thomas. So if he's going to come back week 7, you set a calendar reminder for week 5. You go in, you pick him up on that week's of waiver wire run. You get him for $1, and then you sit on him for 2 weeks. And then you potentially have a very high-scoring wide receiver to add to what should already be a very useful, but you might forget, unless, again, you listen to the Fantasy Football Smackdown, and Kyle does waiver wire sniping. It's a great piece, by the way. But if you don't have to remember, because when Kyle does that, you use your tools and technology. And that's a great one. So can we all bring some tips and tricks for next week to, help get these people ready? Because I think this weekend is the 21st. I think next weekend's the biggest draft weekend of the year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, this the next for sure. The weekend before Memorial or Labor Day, I always mix them up. I don't know why.
I do too.
Labor Day is definitely a big one. So we'll be right back here next Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. One last thing, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to 32 tight ends in 16 minutes next week. It's going to be special.
Yes, it's going to be off the chain. There's a reason we left that for the end. We had some good tight end talk here, so I appreciate you guys coming on here. So, real quick, if there's anything you want to promote, or anything, Tyler, what's the schedule looking like for you guys over the DFS side?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be having an intro, like kicking it off, and then a strategy pod right before the season starts, and then we'll be ready to roll regular season week 1 DFS. I've been taking a look at some of the pricing. I think there's a lot of money to be had, I shall say. So I'm looking forward to getting that out there in the next week or two.
Mike, why don't you give the people a peek behind the curtain if they haven't ponied up yet? Let's go get in the Patreon. What are you guys doing over there? What do they have to look forward to?
Yeah, so for the Patreon pod, we've had 3 done for a while now, so that'll probably be the next one up. We're gonna do a kind of courtroom style game review of some Patreon 4, kind of have a prosecutor and defendant for like someone's RB room, wide receiver room, or tight end room, and someone be the judge, which would be kind of a fun, good time. And Patreon 12 just finished up too, so that one still needs a review. So these leagues are always active and changing, so it's always easy to talk about it when everyone's trading and teams are all aflame. So it's a good time. So definitely join the Patreon and come on in into the chat. It's the best thing you can do for you.
Yeah. And Mike, appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, bro. It's the first time we've got to chat, but it was excellent having you here, and just keep up the good work with the Patreon stuff. We'll definitely have you back here on the Smackdown on the stream. So appreciate you, dude. Jake, you ain't doing anything. You're bailing on me next week. You want to share where the hell you're going? What's more important than a podcast, or you're just going to keep that to yourself?
No, the people can know. Heading to Outer Banks, California. California? Fuck no. Can we do that?
You did
Until we get a sponsor that says we can't, you go right ahead.
Yeah.
I'm going to North Carolina, not California. You can tell where I'm at now on the Miller Lights. After that one just dropped, it's probably a good time to wrap up this show. I'm bummed we couldn't talk a little bit about Royce Freeman. Maybe we can save that for 2 weeks from now. But next time you hear me on this show, I think it's going to be regular season time.
Yeah, we're going to be getting pretty damn close.
Pumped up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Memphis, I know you guys did a really good training camp buys for Dynasty this last week, you and Jerry. What's the word? Just if the people don't already know, what's coming out of the war zone? When we bring in the big bet? What's going on with all this stuff for our in-season coming up?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. First of all, I just can't tell you how proud I am of Mike. And last week we had Jesse. We got to get the third man of the crew. We got to get Chad in here to do a show with us real soon. And those guys are going to be providing content starting next off-season. We've got a couple of concepts in the work for some great off-season content because, there won't be a need for DFS. There won't be as much redraft going on. And you can never have enough, good talent on your team. And these guys have been absolutely killing the Patreon pods. Yeah, tomorrow night, me and another patron, his name is Neil Gray. He's almost like the family admin. Neil is great. He and I are going to jump on and just do some quick sells. Like you said, Jerry and I did some buys on the show for this past Wednesday. Neil's going to jump on with me. And yeah, man, the big bet will come back the first week of the regular season. Right now with us doing the Q&A live and Dr. Kyle's schedule, it's just hard to get him nailed down. But definitely going to start the big bet week 1. And for the YouTube listener, I'm moving, like I know you're going to be doing some waiver wire, sniping some smaller videos and stuff for the YouTube. I'm going to be doing the same thing with the big bet. So last year, I did real well with prop bets. But here's the thing. By the time the line comes out on Wednesday for the Thursday night game, or the lines come out Friday into Saturday for the Sunday games, by the time that I actually sit down behind the mic, record a podcast, get it edited, get it up for you all to consume, those numbers are stale. And the sharps and the people have beat those numbers up. So whereas I might have told you to bet Joe Mixon over 69.5 rushing yards, by the time that you actually hear the pod and can act on it, the number might be 79. And you've lost value. So I feel like if I do those live, I can do them from my office at work. I can do them from the cab of my truck. And if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel with the notifications turned on, if you're not, you may be missing out on money. So that's going to be the best part. I'm gonna be just have to swallow my pride and not have to feel so into about the quality of the overall production, and just really focus on the overall quality of the picks. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube for that, so that way you get the best possible number, because I know gambling is now legal in like half the country.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Great stuff. I'm looking forward to that. I know I got bit by a few times where by the time I listened to it, I was like, oh, dang it. I missed it. That moved already. So
it's crazy how much a line can move. I mean, literally in the matter of a couple of hours. I'll never forget last year, the game that Keenan Allen screwed all of the fantasy gamers, says he was going to have a big game against the Raiders. And his numbers came out for that Thursday night game. It was like 6.5 receptions and like 70 yards. And by the time that, a couple of hours later, it was down to like 3.5 and 30. And by the time the game kicked off, he was off the board entirely. And so if you had been subscribed to the YouTube, you would have gotten those numbers live. He did play, so it was live action. And that's how quickly things can change from a betting perspective, because Vegas does not like losing. So that's the best incentive I can give you to sign up for the YouTube.
There you go. Well,
and besides seeing Jake's Bieber haircut.
Exactly.
I don't even have the Bieber haircut anymore. It's totally different.
It's been weeks. Come on. Jeez.
It's been dozens of days.
Dozens.
All right. For Jake, Memphis, Tyler, Mike, and myself, appreciate you joining us. Thank you to everybody that answered or asked questions in the comments. We're going to be back here on the Smackdown next Monday night. I'll have guest host talking tight ends. It's going to be excellent. And then we'll be right back here for a Q&A next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. You guys take it easy. Stay safe. We'll catch you next week.